In this demo, we're going to take a closer look at the generate formatted text constructs. There are actually two constructs that work the same, but give you different results. The generate delimited text takes either list or non-list inputs and generates delimited output. The generate fixed field text construct is similar to the generate delimited text construct in that it provides a means to combine multiple data inputs into a single text output. The difference is that it generates fixed field formatted text rather than delimited. So instead of differentiating each data point with a known delimiter, you define the fields using a known offset and length. For example, if you'd like to manipulate a field of customer IDs and each ID consists of a 6-digit number, you can use the generate fixed field text construct to combine the customer ID data. Let's look at how these work. In this example, we're using the Find Customers hyperservice to search for customers with a certain criteria. Then we want to take the customer information and create delimited text. Finally, we're going to write that delimited text to a CSV file. Let's walk through the program. For our program inputs, we only have the directory and file name, plus the standard filter inputs for the Find Customers hyperservice, in case we want to only find and report customers with specific values. Let's connect the inputs to our Find Customers hyperservice first, and define the flow. Here, we're going to drag the filter by container from the input port over to the search criteria. Notice that auto mapping didn't pick up the connection from state to state or province because of the name difference. So let's do that one manually. Now we need to connect the input port to the write file construct in order to flow the directory and file name information. And let's configure this data flow. Here, we only need to flow over the directory and the file name. Next, we need to put our construct in. To do this, we'll click the Generate Formatted Text construct on the toolbar, select Generate Delimited Text, and then click the canvas to place it. Now, let's configure and flow our data to the construct. Note that Generate Delimited Text is asking for a configurable input. In this case, we have a data container list. We can simply drag that container over to the configurable input port, and click Yes when asked if we want to proceed with the configuration. The Generate Delimited Text panel opens. You can also access this at any time by double-clicking the construct. Here we can set the specific options for our construct. We can tell the construct whether the input has multiple or single lines. We can select the delimiter, and we can set the record separator. In this case, the input is a list, so it will contain multiple lines. We want to delimit with commas, and the record separator should be a new line. Now let's flow our output from the construct to the write file hyperservice. In this section of the flow, we're going to take the merged data coming out of our construct and flow it over to the contents port on the write file hyperservice. Notice that there is a Boolean value on the write file hyperservice for override. The default value here is true. If we wanted to disallow overrides, we could attach a constant of false to this port. Since our output is the file, we don't need to flow data to the program output port. Let's label our construct something short and appropriate. Now let's save our hyperservice program. And now if we run the program, and let's load our test case data. In this case, we're going to use all customers. If we've configured our program correctly, when we run it, we should get a file called allcustomers.csv. Let's check our output directory and make sure that file was created, and open the file to make sure it's what we wanted. Let's take a minute to talk about the other Generate Formatted Text option, which is Generate Fixed Field Text. The setup of this construct is very similar to the Generate Delimited Text construct, except that the results will be fixed width rather than delimited. If we place the Generate Fixed Field Text on the canvas, the configuration window opens. On this window, we can configure the fields contained in our inputs. One more note before we end the demo. If you right-click either the Generate Delimited or Generate Fixed Field Text constructs, you can create the inverse construct, which is Parse Delimited or Parsed Fixed Field. This comes in handy when you want to parse data. You can copy and paste the parse into another hyperservice program. You can also just use the parse formatted text construct. See the separate demo on that construct for information on how to configure it. And that covers the generate formatted text constructs. You may now close this window.